Sutta 10. The Sutta of Emptiness without Edge. Thus have I heard, whispered where all things lose their boundaries. Emptiness is often feared by those who cling to the self, for they imagine it to be a void, a negation, a loss. But emptiness is not the absence of things. Emptiness is the absence of thingness, the absence of inherent nature, the absence of anything that exists from itself, by itself, as itself. Consider this, disciples. The universe is woven not from objects but from relationships. Fields ripple, particles flicker, forces balance, patterns emerge, and to these patterns the mind gives names. Yet the names are not the patterns, and the patterns are not the truth. They arise in dependence on conditions that arise in dependence on other conditions, with no end and no beginning. What then shall we call the ground of this endless arising? The ancient ones called it emptiness. The modern ones may call it relationality, interdependence, quantum fluctuation, non-dual emergence. The names vary, the nature does not. Look at your own body. It is not a single thing. It is a river of atoms, borrowed from stars, passed through oceans and soils, flowing from one form to another with every breath. Which part of this is truly you? Look at your senses. What you call seeing is a cascade of electrical whispers from photons that have never carried color. What you call hearing is the interpretation of silent vibrations by a brain that has never heard sound. What you call touch is the shifting of ions across membranes that have never felt solidity. The world appears in consciousness, but consciousness appears too. Where then is the seer? Where is the one who hears? Where is the one who knows? Search not with thought, but with stillness. You will find sensations, but no owner of sensations. You will find thoughts, but no thinker. You will find reactions, but no commander. You will find processes, beautiful, intricate, interwoven, but no entity inside, under, or above them that remains the same from moment to moment. This is emptiness. Not that nothing exists, but that nothing exists by itself. Not that forms vanish, but that forms are void of fixed essence. Not that the self is destroyed, but that the self was never solid to begin with. And do not imagine that emptiness is a metaphysical realm, or a subtle substance, or a cosmic background. Emptiness is simply the way appearances arise when seen clearly, free of reification, free of projection, free of illusion. When the mind looks at a wave and sees wave, it is deceived. When the mind looks at a wave and sees water in motion, it is closer to truth, yet there is no water in motion. When the mind looks at the self and sees I, it is deceived. When the mind looks at the self and sees conditions in motion, it comes to rest. Do not try to grasp emptiness, disciples. Emptiness cannot be taken as an object. It can only be recognized in the collapse of grasping. Emptiness is the seeing that there is no thing to cling to, and no one who clings. It is not attained, it is uncovered, it is not created, it is revealed. It is not distant, it is the very nature of this moment's arising. In this recognition, fear loosens, desire softens, boundary dissolves. Birth and death are seen as movements of a self-model that never possessed reality. and compassion blooms, not as effort, but as the natural fragrance of a mind that no longer divides. This is the Sutta of Emptiness without edge, a teaching that does not point to nothingness, but to the freedom that arises when nothing is taken as something solid.